Welcome back to the Route 281 podcast, your weekly look into the lives of the people that make southwestern Pennsylvania an amazing place to live and be. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please give us a follow, like, subscribe. Check us out on Spotify also. Today's guest is a U.S. Air Force veteran. He's serving in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan as part of the military police. He also wrestled for the U.S. Air Force. He's a wrestling coach now. And so we welcome him and thank him for his time, Mr. Logan Fleegle. All right. Hey, Logan Fleegle. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for taking the time and sharing a little bit of wisdom and common sense with the world today.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Yeah, we could use it, right?
I think so. I think we could use a lot more of it.
Yeah. Okay, so Logan Fleegle served in the United States Air Force as military police. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, nice. And currently a correctional officer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, nice. So you kind of was becoming a correctional officer. Was that kind of being a military police? Is there some crossover there from what you learned to what you have to apply as a correctional officer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stuff you're trained on, early, especially in the Air Force.
Yeah.
You get those base trainings of use of force. You get, a lot of that stuff. I know when I was in active shooter was a big thing, which isn't really applicable right now in the prison setting. But I mean, just learning tactics, learning, how to work as a team and, stuff like that. It provides a good baseline for that. And coming in to working in prison when I came home, like I said, there was a lot that translated, but there's also a lot that doesn't.
Yeah.
So,
did they kind of tell you, okay, forget what you've learned, we're going to kind of apply this to prison? Or are they like, okay, I'm glad you learned that, let's draw on your experience?
I think it would be more of the first way. Like, hey, we have
great.
our policy, yeah, you get the baseline, but this is how we want it done. It's more spelled out and, specified to your population or situation than I would have gotten earlier.
Yeah. And so before we go on, we'll say you also wrestled for the Air Force, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We wrestled 2 seasons for him.
Yeah.
So
which that's cool.
It was interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
I know there's not a lot of those guys out there, and it was an opportunity that kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
And like I said, it happened by luck. It happened while I was on a deployment.
Today's episode is sponsored in part by SECHLER Insurance Group, LLC, your local independent insurance agency proudly serving Somerset County and the surrounding area since 1931. With offices located in Rockwood and Somerset, SECHLER Insurance Group specializes in auto, home, commercial, farm, life, and financial services. So stop by and see Scott and Jason for a personalized review of your insurance. Yeah.
And last place I didn't think I'd ever wrestle again.
Yeah.
And so it was.
So you were done. So you went from high school and then joined?
No.
You went to college first? I
went about a semester to college. I went to a junior college out in Northern California.
Yeah.
I went out there, wrestled a little bit.
What made you want to go to Northern California for? Oh, this was for wrestling. You got a scholarship?
Well, it wasn't really a scholarship, but honestly, it was the only opportunity I had.
Yeah.
I was one of those jocks that, like I said, I showed up to play sports in school and didn't really apply myself academically. And, when we started looking at college, realized that we weren't really eligible.
Yeah.
And the one thing about the junior colleges was you didn't need anything academic. It was essentially a community college with sports.
Yeah.
So I talked to Fran Beaujean. He's the one who recruited me out there, and he's a Westmont guy. He was on the Minnesota staff, at Minnesota University coaching, and then he went out to is called Lassen Community College. That's where we wrestled, and for lack of better terms, it was my last option because I was waiting to see if I got accepted, and like I said, academically I didn't get in, so that was the only place that would take me. So never visited it. Just said, hey, I'll be out. You tell me when to show up, and I'll be there.
Nice.
So and but Fran has since passed away, and the Beaujean family, if you know anything about wrestling in the area, the Beaujeans
I didn't grow up in that world. I wasn't, but I know that in this area it's a pretty big deal. Like I have nephews that wrestle. And, some of their friends and even some church members that I know are wrestlers. But
the Beaujeans at Westmont, like those guys, they're a cornerstone in that part of it. And I get to coach with Matt, his younger brother, who was a state champ, and those guys, man, like just the cultures they build wrestling is phenomenal, and it's nice to be a part of. And for me, kind of going back and forth on that is, like I said, going to high school, getting in, going to California, a place that coming off the farm wasn't, it was big. It was a real big world out there.
Yeah.
And Fran helped me, and he helped me become a better wrestler, and now years later, I start coaching. I'm up at Westmont, with a Beaujean again. I walked in, I knew the system. I remembered all the practices. It was the same one. And those guys are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Great coaches, great people.
Yeah. What is it about, you think, Southwest PA, Somerset County that produces good wrestlers?
Tough, man. Yeah. These guys are tough. I mean, and that's the thing is, it's you look at Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is the best wrestling state in the country.
Yeah.
We produce more wrestlers that go to the collegiate level and win at the collegiate level, and you see their styles. I mean, you come out to the West, and this Pittsburgh, this Southwest Pennsylvania area, I mean, these kids are just tough. They're from little patch towns. They work.
Yeah.
They're very blue collar.
Yeah.
And I think
there's a grit.
Oh, there's a lot of grit. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, you go up to the Southwest Regional Tournament and you watch these kids from the Mon Valley. You watch our kids from Somerset, Cambria, Huntington counties, just this little corner. These kids are tough.
Yeah.
They go out and they scrap. Yeah. And they're not afraid to scrap.
Yeah, well, wrestling's one of those sports where you're one-on-one, and so it's you or the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lessons learned, though. I mean, and that's I think that's the other part, bringing it back to, like, Somerset County. Like, when I was in the Air Force, one of the things I had to do was find workout partners. Well, when you're in South Texas, those guys are all jiu-jitsu. They were in MMA. They didn't really know wrestling.
Oh, wow.
And, to find, I wrestled 211. To find a bigger guy to, wrestle with, to, get the feel and grapple with was hard.
No, really.
And we started coaching. And, like, just the culture of wrestling down there is completely different. It's a lot softer, and they're not as technical. It's just a complete 180 from what we do here in PA. We have kids who are, on a mat from the time, they're knee-high to a grasshopper.
Yeah.
And they're wrestling the whole way up through, and they're just tough kids.
Yeah.
And, then you get coaches. You got guys who stay around. They work in the mines. They work local, whatever the case may be, and they keep that toughness in the program.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really sets this corner of PA apart.
Yeah.
Is you just have guys who've been in the program, and they keep the toughness, they keep those traditions alive in those little communities.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of room for bullshit in wrestling.
No.
They gotta.
Not at all. And that's the other thing too, and I think when we made that jump to start coaching, that's something too, like you can love these kids, you can train them, but you got to be honest with them. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things. And then they want to get recruited. They want to go to college. They think they're going to be college athletes, and you might have to sit one of them down and say, hey, like, I don't know if you got it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to tell another coach that like, hey, this guy's, here, and I know you haven't met that expectation from me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it just out of a favor.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's lessons to be learned in not telling kids, being honest with them. Hey, it's going to take a lot more work.
Yeah.
And, you'll get the reward if you work really hard. And that's in any sport, but.
Yeah, it is. And
you can see the ones that really want it start to separate from the ones that don't, and that's what it is. It's the fact that they really want it. Yeah, they have talent and they work hard and they train hard.
Right.
But
and
the ones that really want it start to separate themselves.
Well, and, it's one of those things, we constantly tell them, and I guess this is the one thing I don't like about, living in modern day with, like, social medias,
Yeah.
They want to tell you what's off a hype video.
Yeah.
You get a lot of kids who come in and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's like, well, just go do it.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell me. Like,
right.
Just go do it. Just go do the work.
Yeah.
Like, if that's one thing I've ever tried to teach is just go do the work.
Yeah.
It'll work itself out. It's going to put you in a better position.
Oh, yeah. Talk is cheap.
Oh, it's real cheap, man. And I
so is social media.
Yeah.
As I put my podcast on YouTube.
Well,
that's a little different.
A little different.
Yeah.
But no, but I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, I think with coaching and teaching, especially teenagers, they're a pretty simple creature, and they think they got it figured out.
Yeah.
And just keeping those expectations, and like when they come in and it's like, hey man, like I understand everybody wants to come in and win.
Yeah.
But we got to figure out, to lessen that chance of losing. And the way we do that is by doing the right things, getting your weight cuts right. Come in not missing workouts. Yeah. Little things.
What for? While we're on wrestling, for a parent or some that's thinking about getting their kid involved in wrestling, or a kid that is thinking about themselves, what can they glean from wrestling to take with them? Not only. Yeah, I mean, just what do you think they would gain from wrestling versus another sport? Because you played other sports.
Oh, yeah. Played football, played baseball up until high school. I think the biggest thing wrestling teaches is accountability.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's one of those things that we're able to teach kids how to use combat in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the hand fight. It's one of those things, they get to learn how to use their bodies. They're able to do it in a controlled setting with roles. And this is the thing, like, the whole training method behind wrestling is, the training, the practices are a lot harder than the competitions at times.
Yeah.
You're going 2 hours in the heat, and, once you get into those middle school, high school days, and, they have to stay disciplined. It teaches discipline.
Oh, I had a buddy a couple friends from high school that were wrestlers, and we'd scrap.
Yeah.
As soon as you get me down, that's it. Game over.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like I said, it teaches you discipline. It teaches you a lot of little things, and it holds you accountable.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I wish we'd see more kids give it a try and stick with it. And I know it's a tough sport.
Yeah.
All sports are tough, but wrestling's real tough. And I think a
lot of physical requirements.
A lot of physical, a lot of mental.
Yeah.
And like I said, like you start getting older and you start have to control your weight a little more.
Yeah.
And that pays a toll on it, but it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Doing it right. Obviously.
Oh yeah, you hear the people fasting and trying to cut weight.
Oh yeah.
That does wearing a garbage bag, running around the house.
And I think especially
you've probably done it.
Oh, and that's the thing. The guys that have been in it, they probably did all those bad ways and felt terrible, and it was hard. But at the same time, that's where we got to be ambassadors and get these kids just eating clean. Cutting sugar, cutting whatever. And
it's just being healthy, period. Which I feel like there's kind of like a shift now with choices in lifestyle and health.
Yeah.
You see it among the younger kids now. Like they actually, we've kind of seen what processed food will do to us.
Yes.
And they're kind of like, oh, I've seen that. It doesn't make me feel good when I do it. So maybe I'm making, you still I just feel like some smart kids are trying to make this choice now intentionally.
Absolutely, and I think, like you said, I think we're seeing it in all aspects of life. I mean, we raise beef.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot more people buying because I think people are seeing what the processed stuff does.
Yeah.
And
you guys that part-time farm on top of other work, I know, because I know how hard that is. But it is, like you said, you got beef, everything ever,
Yeah.
You're not without food.
No, and that's the thing. And, I think like kind of tying them both together, wrestling and, growing up on a family farm, like they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess the biggest thing, because I was actually just talking to my mom, I was talking to my dad, and I was talking to my oldest sister.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that farm does is teach you competition.
Yeah.
And, when we talk about competition, it's not about winning and losing. I think that's a misconception that we do with competition is everyone's just so worried about the win and the loss. But it's more the process.
Yeah.
When you compete, you create that standard. And, I had 4 siblings. So you didn't want to be outdone by one of them. So it raised everybody up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it translated into sports.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think those two go hand in hand, and I think that I'm a product of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
you're always a little bit competitive.
Oh,
you would have to be.
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to notice about just the few wrestlers that I know, they're very competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would almost have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, any athlete that really thrives in their sport are competitive.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can learn so much from a loss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes people are afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And, it's embarrassing, or I don't want to lose, or I get mad because I lost. Well, yeah, you don't want to lose, but guess what? There's a learning opportunity.
Right.
And that's in anything.
Yeah.
That's in any area. You're starting a new business, you might fail, but you know what? You've learned something going forward.
Yeah.
It's just, there's great value, great life lessons in a failure or a loss. It's a teaching time.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and you hate to sound like you're softening it up because we do put so much emphasis on being a winner compared to being a loser, but at the same time, it's you're winning or you're learning something.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard in the moment sometimes, especially in sport, where you lose a match or you lose a game, and then you're done.
Yeah.
But you got to figure out how you're going to rebound for the next one.
Right.
And I think that, like I said, I think that part gets overlooked by just the over win and loss.
Yeah.
And, it's about the process.
Yeah. 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 Life is about the process.
It's all the process. that's the beautiful part about it all, man, is like...
Enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy the process, enjoy where you're going, and...
Mm-hmm.
It'll all work out as long as you're doing the right things.
So why the Air Force?
Well,
over the other branches?
Yeah. The funny answer.
Yeah.
I don't know how to swim, man. So there was
still.
I still don't. I get a lot of flack for it, but I respect
You're
the
built
water.
for land.
Yeah, man. I'm not built for being in water, so never was, and I respect the water. I stay away from it. So
you gotta have a healthy fear. That's all right.
But like I said, my older sister, she was in the Air Force at the time, and she kind of, I was a simple 17, 18-year-old teenage boy,
Yeah.
very irrational, not a lot of thought process, and she told me, she's like, go to the Air Force. She's like, and she was right. She didn't lie to me.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, it's gonna get you a career rather than, a military job,
mm-hmm.
And I think, especially at that age, and everybody wants to go be infantry. They want to go do the cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister had, she kind of sat me down and like, hey, you need to think beyond the Air Force. If you're not going to make a career out of it, you're going to get a skill that you can translate in the civilian world. And like I said, I listened, and like I said, there was no water qual, so the Air Force was right down my alley.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Can't swim, but you can fly.
I like boots on the ground.
Yeah,
That's what we figured out, and we stayed there. So.
Yeah, nice. And so when you decided to go to the Air Force and you had to pick your MOS, which you selected military police, right?
I did. And
so tell us a little bit about what's military police.
So in the Air Force, it's more about defending. Mm-hmm. And, that's their little logos, Defensor Fortis, Defenders of the Fort. And, we did anything from, like, when you came in at an entry level, you were a gate guard. Mm-hmm. You were doing entry control points. You do a lot of flight line security, mm-hmm. basically protecting planes. And eventually, as you leveled up, you did law enforcement functions on the base.
Yeah.
And
I would imagine that even, like, that could get hairy at times depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
Because a plane would be a target.
Well, and, not only that is, like, I was stationed at Lackland, San Antonio. I went through my basic, I went through, my training aspect, and I got orders to Lackland. Mm-hmm. I stayed there, which was pretty cool because my sister was stationed there. Yeah. So, like, I had a familiar face there, and I got to see my nieces, when they were little. And but I was stationed there, and but that's right outside of a major city. So not only do you have like the military, but you have people trying to get on base. Yeah. And like you had a lot of people that they were exposed to violence outside, and they were coming up to you for help.
Oh, wow.
So like there's that aspect. And
I wouldn't have come to that conclusion.
No, and like that's the thing, like, and you still, like any military base, its own little city, you're dealing with domestics, you're dealing with traffic accidents, you're dealing with everything a cop deals with. Yeah. And larceny, everything from the BX. And, you're dealing with all those things in that military environment, and you have to be that law enforcement officer. Yeah. And, like, we had DOD police that were, like, civilians that worked with us. Mm-hmm. They were usually prior service guys. And those guys were great because they had a ton of experience from, like, the late 90s and the early 2000s. And they were good guys to have. And you learned a lot. I mean, and we got to work with SAPD a lot. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they were one of the larger police departments in South Texas. So we were dealing with a lot of other stuff, too, and we got to learn a lot from them. Yeah. Like I said, about that time, that was big when they got on active shooter training. So we were doing a lot of trainings on dealing with that. Yeah. So there was a lot. There was a lot that came with it.
I'll guarantee it.
And, like when we deployed, I went to Afghanistan, my first one. We did personnel searches. Like we were bringing Afghans from off base on to work the bases, work dining halls, work the gas pumps, whatever they did. And we'd process a couple thousand a day.
So you were deployed to Afghanistan. Was this a voluntary deployment, or were they your company's going? Or
I volunteered. Like we do it on a smaller level than the Army and the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. We usually have deployment bands, so it's either you go in the spring or the fall. Mm-hmm. And I was so new
at this time. Was Enduring Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom?
Yeah. Okay. And that's what I went.
What year was that? Do you remember?
2010 to 2011.
Okay.
So I went over. I got in country. I think it was August of 2010, and I left in March of 11.
Yeah. Was it a culture shock for you, or was it kind of just like from military base to another military base?
I think it was a culture shock. Yeah. I mean, I think I was ignorant too because I was 20 years old, and like didn't have a care in the world. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wanted to go, and I had a team leader. He asked me to go. He's like, "Hey, go volunteer for this." And he was a good guy. His name was Dennis Younger, and he was a staff sergeant. He was a young staff sergeant, and he was a team lead. And he told me that he got tasked. He's like, "Hey, try to get on. I need some young guys." Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll go. Nice. Like, had no responsibilities at home, right. So it was great. And like I said, we have a much different mission over there. Yeah. And like I said, a lot of it's staying on the base, staying close to base. And it was good. It was good for me. I was able to grow up a little bit over there. You know what I mean? And but it was. I mean, we worked with Afghan National Army guys, they were supposed to be interpreters, but they didn't know lick English, so, but you got to learn a lot from them. You got to see a lot of their culture, while you're sitting there, and usually the older guys were better. The young kids, they didn't want to talk to you. Really? And but like if we needed them to say something to one of these Afghans that were coming to work.
Oh, that's America anymore too. These young kids, I don't know, like they don't, in general, allegedly they don't really want to talk.
Nah.
I don't know if they're so used to texting or whatever. It's like, but I'm a big fan of yes ma'am, yes sir, look in the eye and shake your hand, and learning to converse and talk.
Yeah.
So it's no different over there, huh?
No, and like I said, and I think, at the time, like I said, it was 2010, 2011, like, they didn't know English. They didn't, the younger guys, they didn't really have a grasp on it, like the older guys did, but it was really interesting, because, like, the one thing, I have cauliflower here. And, like, you go over there, and those guys would point at you, and they'd be like, hey, you fight? And I'm like, no, man. Like, I just wrestled in high school. Yeah, because that's a big, fight culture. Like, those guys love wrestling, and that's part of their culture. I mean, you look at any of those old Soviet, occupied areas, wrestling's big. Wrestling, boxing, all that stuff, and they know it. Yeah. Like, that was one thing I was able to talk to those guys. We could talk about wrestling. Yeah. And, it was pretty cool. Did
you learn any of their language?
At the time I did. Yeah. I was a guy, I've always studied. You know what I mean? Like I told you, I wasn't very good academically, but like with wrestling and sports, I always did my homework. Yeah. And when I went over there, I wanted to know at least a little bit of the language, and then you get over and realize there's three different branches of the language.
Yeah, you want to know what they're saying about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And but and some of those guys, like I said, and not trying to not trying to tie it all together, but it was like through wrestling we were able to talk, and like they felt more comfortable, because they're like, hey, this guy wrestles, know, and we could talk about wrestling.
You got something in common.
Yeah, and they could. I'd be like, hey, what's that? Yeah. Like, how do you say that in your language? And They were cool to tell.
Oh, yeah. That's how you learn. You get immersed in their culture.
Oh, absolutely.
I learned Spanish by working with, completely Hispanic crews on golf courses.
Absolutely.
That's what I went to school for.
Yeah.
And I was just immersed in their culture because, most of the crew was Hispanic.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to school to be a superintendent, but they were just grounds workers. This was down in D.C. and Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And, our whole crew was Hispanic, and they were not all from Mexico. They were from Peru, El Salvador, Honduras.
Yeah.
So dialects are a little bit different. Words that they use are a little different. But I learned just by asking questions like you did. How do you say that? How do you say that? Unfortunately, I had a boss who was American who spoke fluent Spanish also.
Okay.
And so I was able to pick his brain a lot. But
yeah. And
I still, I use it from time to time.
Yeah.
We go to Mexico on vacation and get in a taxi, and talk to the taxi driver.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and like I said, I was stationed in San Antonio for 5.5 years, so it's the same thing. Like, one of the guys I coached at a club with, he was big in the Mexican rodeo. Yeah. A big guy, man. His name was Victor Gonzalez, and like that's kind of how I learned Spanish, was outside of going to like a taco shop. Like learning how they say stuff.
Yeah.
And funny story, like first time I ever went to a taco shop by myself, they gave me the bill in Spanish. And I'm like, I don't even know how much I owe. Like, you know what I mean? I called my sister. I'm like, hey,
how many dollars is a peso?
Yeah, I'm gonna send you a picture. I need to know how much I owe these people.
This is in San Antonio.
Yeah, right outside base. And I mean, it shows my simplicity, but it also shows like you gotta figure some stuff out.
Yeah. You just hand him a $5 and. God, thanks. Keep you Jay.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Hey, get back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, like, any stories from over your time in Afghanistan, like that you want to share? Anything crazy happen?
I mean, I wouldn't say crazy. I mean,
you had a pretty.
Yeah, I don't want to like take.
No, I just mean like, like what was something that was memorable for you? Maybe that's how I'll phrase it.
I mean, there was nothing, I guess, out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
you were prepared for what you kind of were over there to do, and
I think so. And like I said, like our mission's a lot different over there. Like we did some QRF stuff outside base, but we weren't going out running missions. That wasn't our job.
Yeah.
I'd probably say, like, if we want to talk about like the cooler things, like I got to do some detainee ops where we take guys that were targets at some point that we would scoop up, and then we would take them back out into their community and release them.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we did probably the coolest thing, and I say this because it was so different. If you ever look at the history of the Soviet Union and how they built bases, their base defense was like a meter deep of just minefields. So like they had all these landmines around this base. And so like those are the bases we occupied when we went over, and they had all these mines, and we provided security for I believe it was a German general and someone with NATO. We had to go out and we had to provide security walking through this minefield so that he could get like a survey done to demine it.
Yeah.
But that's probably the coolest thing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm sure that's a little bit of responsibility.
A little bit. Yeah, like I said, it was different. Like, you know, it's not this big Gucci story.
But like, are those mines still were they active?
Yeah. And like, what was crazy was like you'd be sitting there, like I said, we ran, I think it was about 7 or 8 checkpoints, you know, to get these Afghans on base, you know, make sure that if there was somebody that was of interest, they didn't pop, you know, like on a retina scan on those big TSA scanner type things.
Mm-hmm.
And, but you'd be sitting and you'd see dogs running through those minefields.
They knew where they were.
They knew where they were, but every once in a while
no kid.
You know, and you're like, you know, everyone's losing their mind because it's not something you're used to. And usually that kind of stuff, everyone's
a little on edge about.
You know, circling the wagons.
Yeah.
So, and then you'd have one of those local Afghan A&A guys with you, and they're like, oh, it's just a dog. And you're like, what? Like, it's wild.
That's crazy. Yeah. We're, well, I'll say for behalf of my family and our listeners, thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's dangerous. You know, but yeah, I think service to country is awesome, and glad you did it. I think there's a dedication to country here in Somerset County.
I believe that too.
Yeah, do you see that a lot?
I do, and you know, it's one thing. Like my older sister, she was a career Air Force. She settled down out in Michigan, and that's one thing she says. She's like, this is a military town. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, you know, bigger town. And she's like, there's just not a lot of military stuff going on here. But, like, you come here and, you know, it's almost the small town feel that you see on TV sometimes. You know, the American flag's out. You know, when it comes to those holidays, people are showing up and they're supporting.
Yeah.
And, you know, the one thing I'm involved with the VFW. I'm out of Holsopple.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you get to hear those guys' stories. Those guys went through some stuff. You know, the Vietnam vets, like those guys, they went through it.
Yeah.
And they, you know, we're able to meet down there, and you get to hear all their stories, and we get to conduct business for the community as well. And those guys, you know, they're in their 80s. And I have one guy who's, I think, 94, 95.
Yeah.
He was a Korean War vet. He's still down there every meeting, you know. And those guys, they care about their community.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, that's the glue that holds everything together. If you don't have, you know, the community's important. You can go to a big city and there's good things, you know. I wouldn't go to one. I've been, you know, lived in a populated area like that. Just, like I said, lived outside of D.C., but never had a sense of community. It's like you're just one person amongst a million people.
Right.
Here, I don't feel like that. I feel like this is home, and I just met you.
Yeah.
You know, but I can sit down and talk with you, and you could do that. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist in the city, but this does. It feels like a community.
It does. And,
you know,
and I think that's the appreciation, you have for areas like this. I was a guy. I was trying to get on the first plane out of here when I was, graduating school, and I thought I wanted faster. I thought I wanted bigger, and you get out, you get a taste of it, and like I said, I came home from college, and I was in Northern California, so it wasn't like California. But it was still different. Came home, still wanted out of here. That's when I enlisted. And then, like I said, I lived in San Antonio for 5.5 years. Go on the first deployment. It was just a progression. Mm-hmm. Like every time I came home, I didn't want to leave, and it was just like, the first couple times you're like, that's weird. Kind of want to go home. Didn't think I'd ever be saying that.
Does I know since Trump got reelected and Pete Hegseth is now Secretary of War, their recruitment is not an issue. I think they're exceeding expectations and goals right now. Do you know if that's taking place in the Air Force?
I don't. I mean, it's not something I've really looked into. Yeah. And like I was telling you earlier, I have one of my best friends. He was my roommate. He actually grew up in Ligonier. I didn't tell you that part. We played in the Ken Lancey game together. Okay. And then we joined the Air Force. He was, I think, about 6 months behind me, and he's an intel guy. And I try to stay in contact. I mean, like I said, he's one of my best friends. But life's been busy right now and stuff. Yeah. I haven't really talked to him, and we've talked about it. We've talked more about the culture, the generation coming in rather than the numbers. Yeah. But,
well, I think you're seeing. I just think people were proud of their country again. Yeah. Which led them to say, I want to serve under this leadership. Yeah. And that's good to see. Whether you agree with the reason they go to this country or that country, that's a whole nother ball game. But the fact that people are becoming proud of their country in a way that they're willing to serve. We just saw, Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, because we are doing this today at Black Friday. We're not shopping.
No, not yet.
I'm not a shopper. Thank goodness for be able to purchase online, because I do not like to hit the stores. But.
No, I'm more of a carrier at that point.
Yeah, I'm a pack mule. Yeah, that's usually my role. Yeah. But we just saw what happened in D.C. There's 2 National Guardsmen from right next door in West Virginia. But I mean, like, National Guard and recruitment has exploded. Yeah. People want to serve. People want to do what they can to make this a better place for your kids, my kids. Right. And that's good to see.
And I agree with you. I think the military is a good thing.
Yeah. So you had a good experience.
A real good experience. And, I mean, maybe not so much in the moment, but looking back. Yeah. And, that's kind of the message that we've, put out to kids who've been interested, or even kids who are on the fence. I've talked to a lot of kids who they didn't want to go to college, but they didn't really want to get into a job yet. And I said, go do 4 years. Yeah. And, well, and I don't think any parent really wants to hear their kid going to the military, but I think it's a good thing. For whatever reason, the people enlist and go into the military. For me, I didn't know what I was going to do. Yeah. So I chose the military because I knew I was going to be in a controlled environment. Yeah. It was something that, and that's what it did. It made me grow up quicker. And it put me on a path, like I said, to law enforcement. I was always kind of enamored with, the law enforcement end of stuff. And, it led to working in corrections, and it's given me my career. And it all started there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what I'd say if one of my kids told me. I mean, we talk about it, honestly. I have 3 daughters, and we talk about it. They have some interest. They know that that the educational side of that is provided, and I think, like, if you really want to, and like you said, it could provide an opportunity afterwards. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the focus. How can you serve your country and also get out and then serve also,
right.
you know, in a different role or something, like you said, intelligence or, you know, there's a ton of opportunities.
Oh, and
you know, I did some guys that were on nuclear subs and come out and they're engineers or do, you know, do stuff like that. But.
Right, and like I said, it's at the very least, and I'm not downgrading it by saying this, but it's a good buffer.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're an 18-year-old kid. You don't know what you do.
Yeah.
You like.
Right. Oh, yeah. If you're 18,
yeah.
I don't envy you because these kids have to try and decide what they want to do and go to college. I sympathize with that because I didn't know. You know, and that's.
Listen, I'm a product of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew, like I said at the time, I knew I didn't want to be on the farm anymore.
Yeah.
Like that was my thing, and I didn't want to be here. And like I said, the Air Force created that buffer for me for a couple years, and then he grew into it. And like I said, 5.5 years later, I wanted to come home. I figured it out. I got it out of my system.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a positive way to get it out of your system.
Yeah,
you know, you're learning something. You learn discipline. You meet people. You are exposed to different cultures.
Absolutely.
And then you get, you know, okay, I've got some idea of my worldview now.
Yes.
You know, when you're 17, 18, if you're blessed to live in a home that, you know, with mom and dad and supporting you and doing all these things, but you still have so much to learn.
Oh.
You know, one thing I've learned as a contractor is that you're only as good as the materials you use and the people you work with. That's why I go to SDC Building Center in Somerset. They've got everything I need for my job, from framing, lumber, to finish trim, to tools. And not only that, they know their stuff. If I've got a specific need or a question, they'll track it down and help me find the best solution. So whether you're a contractor like me, or just tackling a weekend project, head into SDC Building Center in Somerset, tell them I sent you, and you'll see why they're the go-to place for the best builders in Somerset.
Oh, so much.
You know, and that can be like, man, if you go to school for 4 years and realize, I hate this.
Yeah.
And now what?
Yeah.
You know, you
got a lot of debt.
Come out. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, and like I said, and you know, that's something, you know, I got 3 kids. My oldest one's 16, and, you know, we've told her, like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Go, you know, she's not so much on the military side of things, but, you know, and I've told her, I don't know if she's a kid who would fit into that system, but at the same time, like, it's still an option if it's the last one.
Yeah,
you know
that's what's tough for here, honestly. I mean, I love Somerset County, and I love living here. Make sure Simon doesn't knock my camera over.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's becoming a tourist town.
Yeah.
You know, especially since COVID, people want to buy here, and they want to just, which, second home, that's fine. You know, and there is some manufacturing, but I just don't see, like, you know, people boomerang here.
Yeah.
You know, I talked about this before. People go and then they come back. You know, I did, you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great place to come home to. It's always home. You know?
Yeah.
It's a great place to raise a family. And
I agree with that. And, you know, kind of getting back to your roots. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you know, it's one of those things, like I said, we have a small family farm. You know, we raise a couple beef, and it's one of those things that, like, I'm able to take my kids up on that farm. I know my little one, I can remember when she was about a year old, you know, she just started walking and all that stuff, you know, real clumsy, but I'd take her out, take her shoes off. We were planting corn or whatever. Let her just walk through the dirt, you know, like something as simple as that. Kids don't get, you know, and, you know, my stepson, I can remember, you know, my dad had to watch him, which if you know my dad's a buffoon, you know, and he's probably not the guy you want always watching your kid, but he's up, you know, it's middle hay season, and he, you know, he tells the kid, he goes, hey, just go get some tools and work on some stuff, you know what I mean? And it ended up costing me about $400 because my stepson took a pipe to one of the tire stems, the valve stems on the tire, and worst part was my dad covered them for him, you know what I mean? And because, you know, the kid was worried sick, and I was working, and my wife, she goes, hey, like, your dad called and said, the boy's sick. And I said, what's going on? And my dad's like, well, I busted a tire up, and then 2 weeks later, my dad's like, hey, this is what really happened. That's why he was sick.
Yeah.
He was afraid you were going to yell at him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what would you have done? He goes, I would have yelled at you.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And,
Yeah.
But,
I always did dumb stuff like that around the farm. We had a dairy farm.
Yeah.
And if it was breaking a window or
anything.
Tuning up the tractor without telling them.
Oh,
we'd go to tractor pull, and our neighbor he worked for Sheffield Equipment, so he knew how to do it.
Okay.
I'd take the tractor over to see him before the pull, and it's like, hey, can you turn the fuel up a little bit? But it's sealed. I was like, yeah, snip.
Yeah, wasn't sealed no more. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But no, it's a great place to have good, honest trouble.
Yes.
For a kid.
And that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Good, honest trouble.
Good, honest trouble.
Get some weariness out.
Oh yeah, my dad would sleep under the tractor. Dairy farmers, God bless them, they're so tired. My dad, I grew up, my dad was tired.
Yeah.
And I know why, because it's tough. Your irregular sleep schedule.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, he could park the tractor in the middle of the field and crawl underneath of it and go to sleep. I'm like, somebody got to go check on him. Like, is he alive? Did he get run over?
Well, it's talking, like I've talked to my dad many times. My dad ran a trucking business, and then his uncle had a dairy farm.
Yeah.
And I was never, I was a little kid when they were milking, but like we've talked, and he's like, I don't know how I got stuff done.
Yeah.
He's like, I jump in a truck, go to Eastern PA, bring a load of coal back. Then I was jumping on a tractor, and like you said, they were always tired.
Yeah.
Catching naps when they could. And
it's a great childhood. I don't want to do it now. It is a great childhood. I think I do like the idea of homesteading and having a farm and being able to provide for yourself. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think I probably would have liked beef farming better because you didn't have to get up at 2 a.m. to milk the beef cattle. But there's still a responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. They still work hard. Crops don't sleep. Harvest time is harvest time, and those cattle still need to be watered, fed if it's 20 below or not.
Yeah.
Snowing. Like I went out this morning. I got a couple animals in my little barn.
Yeah.
I'm like, oof, it's cold out, but I went out in some Crocs and shorts, just to brave it for a minute, wake me up, get me amped up for this podcast.
And you find out what's really warm and what's not. You find out what clothing is warm.
Yeah.
Because that was always one of mine, was breaking the water. Yeah. Whenever breaking the ice in the water, like when you get them real cold spells and. You go up there. I always said the best gloves were C.E. Schmidt gloves because I could take them, pick up ice, and they never seep through, man. And
my dad always said, go think about farming, and you learn responsibility, you learn accountability. You have to do it. You have to be there, whether you're sick or not. It's your livelihood is on the line. And doing that in the wintertime, he's like, this will make you tough. And you're right. He's right. You go to milk cows at 2 a.m. in the middle of February, January. It's not fun.
No,
it's not fun. But that when it's over, I did it, accomplished it. It sucked, but I did it. I would imagine military is similar. That sucked, but I got it done.
Well, I think living that life got you ready for it.
Yeah.
I mean, because speaking of dads, my dad, the only ticket off the farm was sports.
Yeah.
And I tried to get a ticket every day. What I mean? And but my dad was good. My dad rode bulls.
Really?
Oh, he rode bulls.
Like on the farm or in the rodeo?
No, like in the rodeo circuit.
Oh.
And I had a young brother who did it a little bit, and he was more into that. I don't want to say he didn't like team sports and like that, but he would always try to play mind games with you, and I was a guy to be like, hey, can I go down to lift weights at the high school? And he's like, why do you want to do that? It's like, I want to get strong. And he's like,
go jump on that cow over there.
Well, he's like, well, I got 2 loads of hay loaded up. Why don't you just go and load them by yourself? That's probably 200 reps of 44, and you're using your whole body. And, simple high school kid, he's not wrong,
Looking back, you're like, oh, I was working out and didn't know it.
I was working out, didn't know it, and he got his work done.
Yeah, right.
And at the time we weren't really set up. We like any farmer, we didn't have a lot of extra money, and
Yeah.
we never had shoots. And I had a younger brother. We both wrestled, and about the second week of August, we would always castrate our steers.
Yeah.
They're about 300, 400 pounders, and my dad was a guy. He'd be like, "Hey, I can give you a rope, but you guys think you're pretty good wrestlers. Go wrestle them."
Yeah.
And he's like, "They're just babies,
Right. And Angus, 300, 400 pound
Yeah,
Angus, they're
and
violent.
man, we got the tar kicked out of us, man. I mean, I think he got a lot of entertainment out of it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I can remember, we'd get on them
That would be
steers.
so much fun.
Oh, it
Boys,
was,
you send them in there,
It was fun, and like, every once in a while we'd invite some people up, and there's one guy in town, like, he came up and he's like, "What's the plan?" We're like, "There's no plan, just grab him."
Yeah.
He's like, "What do you mean, just grab him?" And he still talks about
There's
it
no
to
plan.
this day.
Just grab 'em.
Yeah, just grab him.
Oh, that's good advice for life. There's no plan, just grab a hold.
Yeah, just grab a hold of it. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then my dad's the guy. He's standing in the corner. There's not a lick of mud on him. There's nothing. He's standing. He's like, "You guys almost got him." And,
Yeah. I showed cattle, and my daughter showed dairy cattle, and I'm always proud when they go in and put that halter on first couple times, and get them trained, and whenever they fight back and they hang on and they stick to it, and I'm just letting go and screaming and walking away. I'm like, they stick to it and they realize, oh, I did that, and I'm like, that's a girl.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love bull riding. We almost started a National High School Rodeo Association. My friend Luke, he passed away, but we were really into it. We had a barrel in the barn with on ropes.
Oh,
you ever see that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you get on the barrel and somebody's pulling on the ropes,
Yeah.
trying to throw you off.
Yeah.
You get a couple of your buddies just yanking on that rope, and it was supposed to be practice, and it was actually probably pretty good practice. Never got on a real bull.
Yeah.
We jumped on the heifers at the farm. Like, we'd lure them into the feed trough.
Yeah.
And we'd stand over them.
Yeah.
And because they're wild, they don't. It's not tame. And we'd jump backwards. We'd position ourselves so that we could push off, land on the back, and see how long we could ride through the pen. Oh yeah, it never ended up real well.
It never does. It never does.
Cool. But my wife, we went to Vegas when I turned 40. And I said, the only way I'm going to go to Vegas, because I'm not a big gambler or anything, and I really didn't want to be in a city like that. But I said, if the PBR, their championship was in Vegas that year. And I said, if we can get tickets to that, I'll go to Vegas. And we got tickets, and it was so cool. It was awesome.
Oh, and
those guys are bad. And you know who else is bad is the guys on the horses wrangling the bulls out of the arena.
Right.
They had one. Most of them will just go right out.
Yeah.
But they had one bull, and he would not leave. And so these two cowboys got their ropes, and they lassoed this bull. And those horses drugged that thing out of that arena. Like, you think, what are they there for? Just for show.
Right.
But when they actually do have to work, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a powerful animal, and those two horses made it look like it was nothing.
Listen, if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole, look into the Mexican rodeo. Because I was telling you, I had my buddy.
Well, all those guys are Brazilian, and a lot of Mexican.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's big down there.
Well,
That's their ticket to America. A lot of them is like PBR and stuff like that.
The guy I coached with now in Texas, like I said, his name was Victor Gonzalez. He was a big guy, and his whole family was in the Mexican rodeo. And like I thought going into it, like I said, my dad was riding bulls, my brother rode bulls, and that's what I was used to. Yeah. Or like you go to a county fair, like you'd see, maybe some Bronx stuff. It's a whole different setup. Yeah. They do like I can't remember the names, but like 9, 10, 11-year-old girls do the old Mexican army formations. And like you're watching these girls, there's like 8 of them, and they're doing these formations, and like the horses, like they look like they're gonna run into each other. Yeah. And these girls are so good on it, and
that's awesome.
That's what they train for. They're steer wrestling. They're not jumping off. They're grabbing a tail and flipping. Yeah. And then they have one where they have like 3 or 4 guys where they're on horseback. They send a horse out that doesn't have a saddle on, and one guy's got to jump from his horse onto that horse with no saddle and ride around the arena.
Jeez.
And I mean, it's wild, man. It's fun to watch.
I was in one rodeo in Jackson Hole. We went out there to Yellowstone just to see. I was 12 when we went, And we weren't there to participate in the rodeo. We just went to watch. But they had a kids event where they put a ribbon on the calf's tail.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, probably 200-pound calf.
Yeah.
And they turn them loose, maybe like 5 or 6 calves. And you had to get the ribbon off the calf's tail. Growing up doing 4-H, I knew how, and on the farm, I knew how to take down a calf.
Yeah.
Fingers in the nose, back of the head, twist, they go right down.
Right.
So finally caught up to one, I'm in Umbro shorts and like little flip-flops or something. I'm running through this arena. There's all these kids running around like, oh, I guess it was a red calf, I remember. And I'm like, I'm going to get this ribbon. Jumped on him, put him down. Some kid was following me. Right when I got the calf down, the kid rips the ribbon off the tail. He stole it from me.
Oh, he outslicked you.
But it was fun, yeah. It was like, I took it down. That was the best part. I don't even know what you got for doing it. But. So, wrestling for the Air Force, tell me a little bit about that experience. Like, how'd that opportunity come up? And then I would imagine that's a pretty cool honor to do.
And I mean, it was, it started when I was in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And while I was over there, outside of work, we worked 12-hour shifts, so I was working out twice a day. That was probably the good part of it. And he was in the gym, ran into a guy. He was a Division II national runner-up in college for Western State out in Colorado. His name was Captain Royce Johnson. And we started talking. I think I wore like a wrestling shirt or something underneath my Air Force stuff, and he saw the wrestling, and we started talking. And he looked at me and he's like, "Hey, did you ever think about trying out for the Air Force wrestling team?" And I had no idea this thing existed.
Yeah.
And I thought he was talking about the academy, wrestling in college. And I said, I don't think I can get in the academy, man. Like, he goes, "No, that's not what I'm talking about." He goes, "All Air Force." He's like, "It's a world-class athlete program." And I was like, I don't know anything about it. And he explained it, and, we kept in contact while we were over there. I was usually meeting with him once, twice a week, and honestly, we were just talking wrestling, working out, stuff like that. And he's like, "Listen," he's like, "if you want to do this, like, come, let's do a workout." And he goes, "I'll either recommend you or I'll tell you it ain't going to be for you." So, okay, I'll do that. We worked out a little bit, and he goes, "Okay." He goes, I think you could do all right. This might be something you could be involved in. And I said, I'd like to, like, I thought I was done wrestling, what I mean? And so he got me in contact with a coach. The coach was Rich Estrella. He was a career Air Force enlisted guy, got out as a master sergeant, and real good dude, involved in USA Wrestling for over 30 years. And the 2 years I was on the team, he was a coach. He was a real good guy. And I started talking to him through email while I was in Afghanistan, and then I screwed up, man. Like, because what happened was I wrestled 174 in college, and I was usually walking around like 195, 200 pounds, cutting down. Well, I went over to Afghanistan. I went over about 205. I went up to about 245. Just lifting, eating, all that stuff, protein powders, and I got big. And so I'm talking to this guy, and, this is where my youth comes in. And we had to fill out a Air Force Form 303. All it was a resume for the sports teams. And he's talking to me when I came back, and it's about end of March. And he's telling me everything I got to do through my unit to get released and stuff. And get approved to come out there. And I think it was like mid-October to go to a training camp. So I had 5-6 months. And he's like, on this form you put that you wrestled 174. He goes, "I need 185. And he's like, "Can you make 185? And I'm like, do I lie and say, "Hey, man, I'm 245 right now. That's not going to, yeah, I'll do it." Or do I be honest with him? I lied. I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be right down. Yeah, I can make that." Because I didn't want to miss the opportunity.
Yeah.
If I couldn't make the weight. So I was like, I get off the phone, I'm like, what did I just do? Like, I screwed up.
Oh, gee, I can't lose 5 pounds. Maybe you give me some tips.
Well, and, that's the other thing is, like, you're used to, like, okay, say high school.
Yeah.
Like, you go through class all day. You go get a 2-hour workout. You have workout partners. You have a team that you're working out with. Whatever. Here you have a lot of clubs. I was in South Texas. I didn't have anybody, and I screwed up. And so, I had some guys, from back here that I talked to about the weight cut, and I'm like, how am I going to get 60 pounds off me by October? And we got about 40 off. I got down to about 205. I went into camp about 205, which was a good weight for me.
Yeah.
And, but it was hard. The diet was the big thing, cutting out any sugars, anything that you really like.
Yeah, right. That's the hard part.
Staying regimented with, eating a couple eggs, and then, just portion and all that stuff, all the stuff that comes with the territory, but then finding a way to get workouts in. Yeah. I can remember being on the flight line, we have full vest on, when we're out there. I have an M4, I'm putting it on the ground doing push-ups, doing sprints on this flight line when I knew no one was watching.
Yeah. And where's he going?
Yeah, like dumb little things. And, then we found some MMA gyms. Like I said, we didn't get wrestling per se, but we got grappling, so kind of get into that.
Yeah.
And went out, like I said, got down to weight, went out in about October, and it was an Olympic cycle, so we had a short camp. And, none of us were making it. The one thing you learn about the military branches when it comes to sports, they all have their little ticks. Yeah. And, the Army and the Marine Corps, those guys are phenomenal wrestlers.
Yeah.
They bring in good wrestlers.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the Army, and they had a team full of guys that were on Olympic teams.
Wow.
And that's all they did was wrestle. They had a heavyweight, Tramil Byers. I don't know if he worked a day in his, military job. Mm-hmm. He was just a wrestler. And, he was a multi-time world medalist. He was on multiple Olympic teams as a heavyweight. He was a massive human and just freak athlete. And but backing up, we went to Mountain Home, Idaho, which is about an hour and 20 minutes north of Boise. That was my first wrestling camp. And like I said, it was kind of quick. I never wrestled Greco. I did a little bit of freestyle when I was in high school, but Greco was very foreign. And the one thing about Greco, you can't use or touch your legs.
Yeah.
It's all upper body, and it makes it, it's a very hard style of wrestling because there's only so many moves. Mm-hmm. But the guys that are really good at it find angles.
Yeah. And
that's the one part of the game that I was able to learn that for 2 years, and we're able to put it into the high school game. Yeah. And, we've had some success with it. And, but going out and learning it for the first time, that first year I got my tail kicked, man. Every practice, the guy who I worked out with the most on the Air Force team, a guy by the name of Jeff Zastro. That guy, he fought in the IFL, whenever before the UFC, and he was world Sambo champ. He was a couple-time All-American at Wisconsin Whitewater. Yeah. And that guy just beat the tar out of me every day, man. I took a lot of licks.
Yeah, that's got to be a little bit humbling,
Oh, it is. But at the same time, that's what makes you grow.
Yeah, right. You grow from that, yeah.
Yeah, and, getting there, learning it a very hard way. It sticks. And I went to my first Armed Forces Championship. So before we did any other tournaments, we wrestled the other military branches. And my first match was against a guy who was in the Pennsylvania Wrestling Hall of Fame. Yeah. And he was at the tail end of his senior career. His name was Justin Millard. And I don't remember his accolades. Multi-time, top 2 in the country. Yeah. Like I said, him, his dad, and I believe his brother in the Pennsylvania Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And the one thing I'll tell you in wrestling, I wasn't a world beater. I wasn't anything great. But the one thing I can tell you, I didn't get pinned a lot.
Yeah.
And my first Greco match, I got pinned in 40 seconds. And it's wrestling this guy, and I remember I was so mad I walked off. And my coach, he goes, do you know what just happened to you? I was like, no, that's, I didn't really understand. Yeah, and he's like, for one, it's Justin Millard. You're a PA kid. This kid's this guy's in the Pennsylvania wrestling. His whole family is. And okay, that doesn't make me feel any better,
Yeah.
And we got through the first one. Like I said, I wrestled some good guys from the Marine Corps. They beat me and stuff. we got sent back to our unit. And because, like I said, it was an Olympic cycle, so we didn't qualify anybody. So I went back to my unit, and then for about a year, I was back in my unit, and then they called me again. And, hey, do you want to come out? Yeah, absolutely. And my leadership my unit leadership, they were kind of giving me a hard time, and, to go out. And luckily for the coach, he had made some connections, through his military career. He was able to get some guys to pull some strings for me, and I was really fortunate for that.
Yeah.
And then that second camp, we did a lot better. I mean, I didn't place tournaments, I didn't do anything, but we got to be out there for a couple months, because this time it was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, at that military base where we trained. We had armed forces out there. It was pretty cool because my dad got to come see me wrestle. So I had him bring 4 dozen gobs, because, I have guys from all over the country, they never had a gob. And I told my dad to grab 2 dozen of them, and I think 18 made it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I asked for 24. He's like, it's survival, man. I was on the turnpike. I had to go, And, but my dad got to watch me wrestle out there, won a match or 2. And then from there, we went to Fort Carson in Colorado, and we trained with the Army, and we got to go to the Olympic Training Center. We got to train with those guys that were residents there. They came to the Army room a lot, because the Army, they had a bunch of guys that were the best guys in the country at the time.
That's cool.
And just to be around those guys.
Yeah. So you're traveling, training.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it was, it was my job, and it was pretty cool being in the military. We didn't need to shave. We didn't have to wear a uniform. When we competed at the Armed Forces, we do it for 2 days, and on that second day after we were done, we got to have a banquet. We got to, eat and drink with, the other branches, guys you never know, you just competed against, and it was a real good time. It was a real good experience.
What a cool experience.
Oh, it was awesome.
That's awesome, man.
And I mean, it was funny too, because you talk to guys and you talk about their interaction with leadership. I can remember when the Air Force Base that's right beside Fort Dix, McGuire, they found out we were there. They came over, there's a couple lieutenant colonels and stuff, and we haven't shaved. We got shaving waivers right away because we were competing, and we're not in uniform. We're in t-shirt and shorts, and we're doing the customs and courtesies, and these guys are just talking to us about wrestling, and
that's cool.
It was pretty cool. It was,
I looked up the website, U.S. Air Force Wrestling.
Yeah,
and they're having a match. On their homepage, there's a match on an aircraft carrier.
Oh yeah,
like multiple matches going on.
Really,
and that whole crew is out watching. And I don't know if they set this up or what, but it looked like it was really happening. And they had a Blue Angels F-18, I think,
really
sitting right between the 2 rings.
Oh, that's
cool. It was neat.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But while we were in Jersey, that was a pretty cool thing too, because if you watch UFC, Frankie Edgar, that's where he trains out of, and he had a bunch of guys he was training for, MMA, and there was a bunch of, a couple Brazilians, a couple local guys. He found out we were there, and we got to go train with those guys.
Yeah.
Got to meet Frankie Edgar, then we got to go down to the New Jersey high school state tournament, and we got to watch them. Jersey's probably second to Pennsylvania. We share a border. We wrestle those guys a lot.
Yeah.
And, go down watching those high school kids. We got to work out in that little civic center that's in Atlantic City, for our workout, and got to talk to a lot of those guys. And it was a cool experience.
Did you ever imagine that wrestling here in Somerset County would take you places like that?
No, and I think that's the big thing is, with wrestling, you think of something just as a high school sport, it took me everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got to go on the Air Force's dime. Like I said, I got to go to the Olympic Training Center and work out with those guys a couple times. I got to go in the Army room with guys who were Olympians. Got to go to senior nationals after that. I competed in Vegas, at the biggest tournament in that style.
Yeah.
And I got to wrestle 2 of the best guys there, and I got my tail kicked.
Yeah.
But, and like I said, and you get to meet those guys, and like, you get to be around them and, you know, see how they train, and, you know, you're talking to them. You know, usually after the first week, you know, you get a lot of the awkward stuff out of the way, and, you know, it's their room, and you kind of deal with it, and then they're like, hey, why don't you come over? Like, I remember there was a guy named Justin Lester. If you'd see this guy wrestle, he was a freak. I mean, he could throw anybody, anytime, anywhere. And he was, I think, about 170 pounds. And you'd see him, and I can remember, like, he was, like, one of the guys. Like, he was on Olympic teams and stuff, and I never thought he'd talk to me, you know, or, like, the group of guys I was with the Air Force, we didn't think he was going to talk to us, and he come over, he's like, hey, I'm having a bacon party at my house. And we're like, you talking to us? You know, like, kind of starstruck, you know, and he's like, no, if you guys want to come over.
Bacon party?
Yeah, bacon. Everyone makes a different style of bacon.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Oh,
like, you know.
we got to do that here in Somerset County. Yeah. I'm not familiar. I love bacon.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you just got to make bacon in a different form. And we're like, Justin Lester, this guy's like world team member. Like,
yeah, that's cool.
And, you know, a lot of those guys, like I said, you know, in wrestling, they were big deal. Spencer Mango, he's now, I believe he's now the Army coach. But he was going through it. He was a little, like, 5'5", 125-pound guy. I mean, he'd throw people everywhere.
Yeah.
And you just see the athletes that came in there. And that was probably another thing is, like, you know, we go through high school practices here. And, you know, a lot of it's running, wrestling, conditioning. You go out there, the first 20 minutes, gymnastics.
Yeah.
And, like, it's like I said, I grew up my whole life kind of going through the same kind of system. And they're like, hey, start doing back handsprings. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I look like a toddler at you know, a tumbling class at that point, you know, and still don't know how to do back handsprings. I just
can't picture that.
No, but, like, and you watch these guys, and like, the big guys, like I told you about Jamil Byers.
Yeah.
Like, this guy would walk around at 315 pounds. He was, you know, 6'5", 6'6". He never lost a sprint.
Yeah.
You know, to all these guys. Like,
how does he find guys to wrestle? But I guess they're...
Well, and I think his story, and I could be wrong, so, but if I remember correctly, like, he was a football player.
Yeah.
And they recruited him in to wrestle. They needed a big guy, and he was massive.
Wow.
And, like I said, I remember hand fighting with him one time, like, in a drill. Yeah. And, like, I grabbed onto his fingers, and he just grabbed mine, and he's like, hey, don't grab my fingers like that. And I'm like, yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Know your place, I guess.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So
so this kind of took you all over the country in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been overseas and all around the country, and kind of what made you want to come back to, you know, raise your family in Somerset County? Because you probably could have stayed anywhere, I would imagine. You made enough connections.
Yeah.
Been to a lot of places to, you know, experience. I'm sure you've been to places that were probably, you know, enticing to stay, or, you know, but what made you want to come and raise your family here?
I mean, a couple things. You know, my dad needed some help on the farm, and, you know, that was a big thing. I knew coming home, you know, the prison system, I knew that. You know, I was a guy who always said I wanted to go and be a state trooper, and I'm not trying to sound like that guy, but at the same time, like, my dad needed help. I needed to be more... I need to stay in one spot. I did without the ability to be moved, and I thought at the time the prison, you know, that's what it was. You know, you get hired at a prison rather than for the Department of Corrections. I would stay at one spot, and it was that. I mean, and I think growing up, like I said, you know, I was the kid who wanted out of here, and I got all that, and I got all that out of my system. And like I said, the last couple of times I was coming home and visiting, you know, on leave, doing whatever, like, it's like, this is where I want to be. You know, I like the pace. The people are awesome, you know, and, you know, it's just, it's so, for lack of better terms, it's so simple.
Yeah.
You know, and I say that in a good way. You know, it's
we just talked about that with my brother yesterday. Simpler is a little better.
It's so much nicer. I mean, you're not dealing with traffic jams. You're not dealing with people you don't know. Like you were saying, like, it's not as close knit. Yeah. You know, most of the time, you know just about everybody here, and that's a good thing. And, you know, I wasn't married or anything at the time, and I knew I was starting to settle down, and this is where I wanted to be. Like I said, I wanted to keep, the idea of a family, growing up the way I did.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, welcome back. How long have you been? So, what year did you graduate high school?
08.
Okay. And you were in for 4 years, and then
I was in
how long have you been in Department of Corrections?
I was in for 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
And but I've been in corrections for about, this year will be, I think, 11.
Okay. Cool.
So, and it was interesting to say at least when I came home, because like the state was froze.
Yeah.
Like they weren't hired at the time, and I worked at the county for a couple months, and got to meet some really great people there too, and kind of get thrown into this whole corrections thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I went for criminal justice at Allegheny College in Maryland.
Okay.
For like a semester and a half, and I was like, I don't want to be a cop, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. I just one of those things, couldn't see myself doing it.
Yeah.
Just huge respect for law enforcement and for guys that are dealing with that type of thing. But yeah, I was like, I still gotta try something else, but and I did. But it's a great place to raise a family. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for much. Maybe I always said, put me on an island in the Bahamas, I'd probably take that. But
I told you I don't deal with water too well.
I do. I love the water, love the ocean, sand, sun. No, it's a great place because of the community and the self-sufficiency aspect of being here, and mountains are beautiful, fishing, hunting. Yeah, I love all that stuff. So
and that's something like me and my wife have talked about too. Like, if we need to go, if we get that little hair that we want to go into the city, it's an hour.
Yeah.
It's an hour and some change to get into Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is one of my favorite cities. That I've traveled to, and it's just, you go down there, the culture of Western Pennsylvania, it's on full display, and I like being around those people too. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a tough city to navigate. Especially if you've been to a city in Texas where everything's on a grid pattern. Yeah. And you get in Pittsburgh, you're like, what is this? Yeah. But once you learn your way around, it's, it just takes a little bit more to learn it.
Right.
And be willing to get lost a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. Get lost, find new stuff, and,
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. Once again, thanks for your service to the country. Thanks for, coaching the kids over there at Westmont, right?
Yeah.
You're coaching wrestling at Westmont now, and get to kind of, that's awesome for them because you got a wealth of experience to share with them. It's awesome for the Somerset County wrestling kids that have a resource like you who's been around and can share. There's options and opportunities, and work hard, and you get rewarded.
There's so many guys around, and in so many different sports.
Yeah.
There's guys here that they're putting a lot of time in. I know the guys I coach with.
Yeah.
Those guys are head and shoulders above me with teaching these kids, but those kids, they're very fortunate.
It's fun to teach these kids, isn't it?
And I think the biggest thing is, everyone likes success.
Yeah.
But, when they get in those little ruts, and then you're like, hey, try this.
Yeah.
And it works for them, and then you can kind of see them light up. That's
watching a kid grow and at anything is fun, but at sports, when you see them hit that worked.
Yeah.
When you teach them something and they try it and that worked, and you see them grow a little bit, it's fun.
And like I told you earlier, like, a lot of these 16, 17, 18-year-old, they're very simple creatures.
Yeah.
I mean, we can think back to when we were. Like, we thought we had a lot of stuff figured out, but whenever they do, it clicks and they see it, and it's like they don't want to admit they're right or that I'm right.
Yeah.
But they keep doing it. That's fun, too.
Yeah. Nice. All right, Logan Fleegle, I appreciate you coming on, talking with us a little bit. It's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit.
I appreciate you having me on. It's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming.
No problem.
Thanks again to SDC Building Center for supporting the Route 281 podcast. I use them for my contracting work, and I can tell you they're the real deal when it comes to quality and service. Stop in and see them next time you're planning a project.